Welcome to the Diadem. We are a small group, and I've written a book. This book was written to capture my journey from a lifetime of forced astral attack to poltergeist activity, navigating through the wolves of the corrupt and sold-out church and the BS New Age, and finally, through a very small Bible study group and what we've learned. Believe me, I'm pissed right off. In the future, we're going to add controversial and truth-seeking Bible study series based on the lessons learned in this book. We may not have all the answers, but we've got a lot of them. And we hope you join us with an open mind. It's probably not what you think. Chapter 7. The church's evil shepherds. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. But I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. That's in John 10. Now, the American Bible Society conducts an annual survey called The State of the Bible. In the 2023 report, found that online church attendees read the Bible more frequently than those who attend church in person. Specifically, 79% of online worshipers reported reading the Bible at least weekly on their own, compared to only 32% of in-person worshipers. This highlights a significant discrepancy between the engagement with the Bible among different groups of churchgoers. It also suggests that online worshipers might be more devoted to personal Bible study than those who attend the physical church services. Jesus, throughout his ministry, consistently emphasized that he alone is the true teacher and shepherd of his followers. He lovingly guided his disciples, teaching them to rely on him and his words rather than on fallible human institutions or leaders. In John 10:14, Jesus declares, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. His voice is the one that leads us to truth and righteousness, distinguishing him from the hired hands who do not truly care for the flock. In his teachings, Jesus warned against corrupt leaders and false teachers. The parable of the corrupt servant is found in Matthew 24:48 through 51, and it illustrates this clearly. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is staying away a long time. And then he begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day when he doesn't expect him and at an hour he's not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. This parable highlights the consequences of unfaithful and abusive leadership, reminding us to remain vigilant and discerning. Jesus also spoke harshly against those who lead others astray, particularly for personal gain. Matthew 18:6 says, if anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it'd be better for them to have a millstone hung around their neck and to be tossed into the depths of the sea. Now, this warning, pretty severe, underscores the gravity of leading others into sin and the importance of maintaining integrity and faithfulness. James, the brother of Jesus, echoes this sentiment by cautioning against the responsibility and potential pitfalls of teaching. James 3:1, he writes, not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. This serves as a sobering reminder of the weight of teaching and the need for sincerity and truth when guiding others. Furthermore, in John 10:12-13, Jesus speaks about the difference between the good shepherd and the hired hand. The hired hand, or the paid preacher with his tax-free houses, is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. When he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. This passage calls out paid preachers and leaders who serve their own interests rather than those of the flock. Isaiah also prophesied about the downfall of corrupt religious leadership. In Isaiah 28:13, it states, "So then the word of the Lord to them will become, do this, do that, a rule for this, a rule for that, a little here, a little there. So as they go, they'll fall backwards. They'll be injured and snared and captured." This passage criticizes the legalistic and hypocritical approach of the religious leaders, leading to their eventual downfall. Jesus' message is clear. He is the true shepherd and teacher. His followers are to seek him directly for guidance and instruction. The church, while it's supposed to be a community of believers, it's not the ultimate source of authority or teaching. Jesus' teachings remind us to be wary of those who misuse their positions for personal gain and always turn to him, the good shepherd, who laid down his life for his sheep. We begin by defining essential biblical vocabulary to clarify the distinctions between terms like Jew, Judah, Judea, Hebrew, and Israel. A lot of churches today just throw them all together. They're very, very, very different terms. Understanding these terms is crucial for comprehending the broader narrative and the specific role that each group plays in biblical history. So next, in this chapter, we'll explore a Greek mini lesson uncovering how the corruption of unambiguous Greek grammar has been used to suit various agendas. This analysis will reveal the layers of interpretation and misinterpretation that have influenced theological doctrines over centuries. This chapter is also going to examine the Old Testament covenants, focusing on the Davidic redactors and the Ephraimite bloodlines. By tracing the lineage from Jacob to Esau and beyond, we uncover the deep-seated conflicts and alliances that have shaped biblical history. We'll begin to delve into the ongoing struggle between the house of David and Saul, exploring both symbolic and literal divergences from the righteous path. Finally, we'll consider the significance of Jacob's blessing and the contrasting paths of the right hand and the left hand. This symbolic duality offers insights into the moral and spiritual choices that define individual and collective destinies. And together, these elements create a comprehensive picture of how hidden bloodlines influence biblical history and spiritual understanding. Through this exploration, we gain a deeper appreciation of the rich and complex heritage that continues to inform and inspire through today. Oh, and also deceive. This intricate tapestry of biblical narrative is woven with threads of lineage, covenant, and conflict. Hidden in its stories are profound truths about the bloodlines and their influence on the narratives of faith and identity. The complexities of these hidden bloodlines will reveal how they have shaped and continue to shape theological understanding and cultural identity. After years of fervent study, I've aligned with the watchmen of Ephraim and accepted this mantle. This exhausting, frightening, and relentless pursuit of clarity and truth really mirrors the ancient role of Ephraim. My experiences and victories in spiritual warfare highlight this role as a modern-day watchman, tasked with confronting the church and restoring the integrity of divine teachings. An undeserved divine election to challenge the corrupt practices, armed with the knowledge of the one true God, his natural law, his divine commandments, and the only true teacher, shepherd and gate, King Jesus, Son of David. This journey reflects the biblical tradition of the firstborn rising to fulfill their divine mandate, bringing correction and enlightenment to those led astray. Jeremiah 31:9 says, "For I'm a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn." This underscores Ephraim's unique status and the expectation of leadership. Hosea 13:1 says, "When Ephraim spoke, people trembled. He was exalted in Israel, but he became guilty of Baal worship and died." Ephraim's fall due to idolatry illustrates the need for corruption and redemption. The watchmen of Ephraim, the saints, acting as a guide to those on earth, rise as a sentinel, matching above and below, embodying this role of the firstborn on heaven and on earth to confront and correct the deviations within the church. This duty is to rebuke and warn, standing as a beacon of truth amidst the distortions of doctrine. Now, despite the desperation of paid preachers and modern political aspirations, you simply can't redefine or conflate ancient biblical terms. Conflating terms like Jew, Judah, Judea, Israel, and Hebrew will significantly distort one's understanding of the Bible. Each term has distinct historical, geographical, and theological connotations, and using them interchangeably can obscure the nuanced roles and relationships within biblical narratives. Accurate comprehension requires recognizing these differences to fully appreciate the complexity of the scriptures. Hebrew. The term Hebrew originates from the root word Heber, which means to cross over. This has both physical and spiritual connotations. The physical crossing refers to a literal crossing of geographic boundaries, such as Abraham crossing over into Canaan, symbolizing a journey of faith. The spiritual crossing represents a transformative journey, moving from a state of unbelief to a state of faith, and from disobedience to obedience. Understanding this concept of crossing over highlights the Hebrew mindset that faith is intrinsically linked with action. In the Old Testament, the term Hebrew is often referred to the descendants of Heber, the great-grandson of Shem, one of Noah's sons. But a Hebrew is not simply an ethnicity. It was just used to denote a distinct group among the patriarchs, particularly those who were set apart or had crossed over physically and spiritually. This crossing over symbolized not just geographic movement, but also a separation from pagan practices and an alignment with the divine covenant. Not all descendants of the patriarchs were called Hebrews. It was a term reserved for those who maintained the covenant relationship with God, embodying the concept of divine election. This designation emphasized a unique service within a covenant relationship with God the Father, within the broader narrative of biblical history. And they're seen as divinely elected people, chosen to serve specific purposes in God's plan. This divine election is not based on ethnicity, but on God's sovereign choice and calling of individuals. It surpasses bloodline and speaks to covenant. We see an example of this in Luke 2:8, when John the Baptist states, "Produce fruit in keeping with repentance, and do not begin to say to yourselves, 'We have Abraham as our father.' For I tell you that out of these stones, God can raise up children from Abraham." That was stated at Jesus's baptism, right before he was baptized, signifying an end of the old covenant and an ushering in of the new. This statement underscores that God's ability to fulfill his promises is not limited by human ancestry or ethnicity. It's a powerful reminder of the boundless nature of divine grace and divine election. Many descendants before Jacob were related to the Hebrews, but they weren't designated as Hebrews or divinely elected to serve specific roles in God's plan. Abraham. Now, he's considered the first Hebrew called by God to leave his homeland and follow God's direction in Genesis 12:1-3. His faith and obedience set the precedent for the Hebrew identity as those who cross over into God's promises. Ishmael, Abraham's son by Hagar, he's a relative, but not considered a Hebrew or part of the divine election in the same way that Isaac is. God promised to make Ishmael a great nation in Genesis 21:18, but the covenant promises were given to Isaac. Ishmael's descendants, the Ishmaelites, are not designated as Hebrews. Isaac was designated the monogenes because he's the only born son of Abraham and Sarah. And he inherits the covenant promises and continues that line of the divine elect. His role in God's plan emphasizes the continuation of the covenant promise through Abraham's descendants in Genesis 26:2-5. But Esau, the elder son of Isaac and Rebekah, is a relative, but not chosen as part of the divine elect. Despite being Isaac's firstborn, the covenant promises passed to his younger brother Jacob, highlighting God's sovereign choice in Genesis 25-23. Esau's descendants, the Edomites, are certainly not referred to as Hebrews. Jacob, later named Israel, is the father of 12 tribes of Israel, or 12 sons who became the patriarchs of the tribes. His descendants are collectively known as the Israelites or the Hebrews, chosen to fulfill God's purposes. His life exemplifies the transformative journey and struggle with God in Genesis 32:28. Now, the Hebrews, as divinely elected people, are called to reflect God's character and laws to the nations around them. That's in Isaiah 42:6. They're to receive God's revelation and be the recipients and transmitters of God's laws, covenants, and promises. That's in Exodus 19:5-6. And to fulfill God's plan and play a central role in God's redemptive history, which culminates in the coming of the Messiah. Biblical Judah. First, Judah is a son of Jacob and Leah. This one deserves a closer look. Despite his janky-ass escapades, Judah's lineage is often held up by modern paid preachers as the quote-unquote set apart and quote-unquote chosen lineage of God to birth the Messiah, a son of David, which certainly raises an eyebrow or two. His story is a complex tapestry of wickedness, scandal, and deception. Judah, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, certainly had his share of questionable decisions and scandalous moments. One of the most infamous episodes involves his daughter-in-law, Tamar. After God struck down Judah's two sons for their wickedness, Tamar was left a widow. So God didn't just kill Judah's firstborn, he killed off his secondborn too. That's how wicked Judah's offspring were. Now, Tamar, the daughter-in-law, was left a widow. So taking matters into her own hands, Tamar disguised herself as a cult temple whore and seduced Judah, resulting in the birth of twins. This lovely story of the perfect set-apart lineage of Judah is written about in Genesis 38. This incident not only highlights Judah's moral failings, but his susceptibility to deception and impulsive behavior. Now, the tribe. Judah is also a tribe. The tribe of Judah refers to one of those 12 tribes of Israel, and these are the descendants of Judah, their patriarch, the fourth son of Jacob. Now, not everyone from the tribe of Judah was a Jew. It is so essential to distinguish between the tribe of Judah and the term Jews as understood in different biblical and historical contexts. The term Jew more accurately describes a segment of the people from Judah, particularly the elite priests and politicians who returned from Babylonian exile. Coincidentally, Babylon happens to be the place where Nimrod famously tried to establish the original New World Order at the Tower of Babel. Judah also can refer to the southern kingdom. After the death of King Solomon, the United Kingdom of Israel split into two separate kingdoms. This is around 930 BC. This is because Solomon did a bunch of janky, demon, sex, magic, weird shit. And the northern kingdom of 10-ish tribes was called Israel, and often referred to by the name of Ephraim, as it was led by Joseph's son Ephraim. And the southern kingdom of two tribes was called Judah. The two tribes in the kingdom of Judah were Judah and Benjamin. Now, Simeon was also absorbed here because, well, Simeon was so evil and violent, they didn't get their own land. Levi was kind of sprinkled in everywhere as priests, so Levi was in many northern and southern territories. So the primary people living in the southern kingdom of Judah was the violent and wicked Simeon, Benjamin, the people who came from the wicked Judah, that line, and some of the priests. There you go. All the other sons of Jacob were in the north. Now, notably, the kingdom of Judah continued their blessing seen in Genesis 49:10. That says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. And to him, Shiloh, shall be the obedience of the people." For some reason, however, modern paid preachers seem to miss a few key words from that passage. That pesky word until, and of course, Shiloh. The term Shiloh is generally understood to be the Messiah, and it means the peaceful one, or he to whom it belongs. It seems like somebody's coming to take that law-giving scepter and rulership away from Judah. So then I guess we better learn who that badass Messiah from Shiloh is and what bloodline he comes from. Because it certainly doesn't say that Judah will hold rulership until Judah comes to take the scepter from Judah. That's not what this says. So why is everyone waiting for the Messiah from Judah? Well, that's what we're going to clear up today. Now, biblical Judea is the name of the southern kingdom post-Babylon. It's crucial to exercise caution when interpreting biblical references to Judeans, as the term can be ambiguous. It's often translated in many Bible translations as Jews, and this just oversimplifies the complex distinctions between geographical, cultural, religious identities. Judeans are just the inhabitants of Judah, encompassing a really broad spectrum of individuals, including tribes, cultures, good, bad, and even different religions within the region. So misinterpreting this leads to significant historical and theological misunderstandings. So precision is the key to accurately grasping the biblical narrative. Remember, the Judeans are not Jews. The Jews were taken into captivity in Babylon and returned 2,500 years ago. For some reason, many churches today are teaching that, oh, look, 1948, after the Rothschilds' Balfour Declaration country, somehow is a miracle and the Jews are returning. No, those prophecies were done when the elite priesthood and politicians were taken off to Babylon and returned as Jews. So this small and specific segment of the population of Judah, the elite priests and politicians, were taken off to Babylon and returned just a generation later. So this contrasts with this broader modern use of the term Jew, which primarily denotes a religion, an ethnicity, a race, or whatever else they want to tack on. These elite leaders who came back from Babylon implemented various laws that they claimed to be given by the divine. They also altered biblical texts, such as the genealogies found in Chronicles, to, quote unquote, re-educate and control the common people of Judah on behalf of the Persians. See, the elite priests and politicians who returned from the Babylon exile did so in the late 500s BC, about a generation after they were taken into captivity. This return was facilitated by the decree of Cyrus the Great, the Persian conqueror of Babylonia, who allowed the Jews to return to their homeland and rebuild a temple in Jerusalem. In other words, the Jews already returned to the land 2,500 years ago. Upon return, because the northern tribes of Israel hadn't returned from several years earlier, we'll get there, the Jews took over the whole place and claimed much of Israel's history and accomplishments and took them for their own. Many modern Christians are confused because modern preachers conflate today's highly politicized definition of Jew with ancient Israelites from the Northern Kingdom, when in fact, they're not referring to the same people at all. They're different tribes from different kingdoms with different diasporas, but both are welcomed under the new covenant. Now, the modern state of Israel's naming and historical claims are, well, to say the least, controversial. The Ministry for Diaspora Affairs focuses only on the Jewish elite diaspora, which they specifically trace back to the Babylonian exile in 500 BC. But this dating has nothing to do with the Israel diaspora, or they date it to 700 BC. The earlier Assyrian exile in the 700s led to the dispersion of the northern tribes of Israel, and these are often referred to as the lost tribes and the scattered sheep, who are not ever prophesied nor expected to return to the physical land. Instead, the northern tribes of Israel will be spiritually reunited in the Davidic kingdom of the Messiah under the new covenant. So the choice of the name Israel for the modern state was intended to reflect a historical and biblical connection, but it glosses over the real history of the different tribes and their very distinct experiences. The term Judea would be a little more historically accurate for the southern kingdom. But the broader name Israel, yeah, that was chosen to encompass and subvert the entire land and heritage, much like they did upon return to the land from Babylon 2,500 years ago, linking the complex history of many diverse multitudes and sucking it all up to one group of Babylonian elites. Biblical Israel. Well, this has a significantly different meaning than the one falsely attributed to it today, based on modern geopolitical motives, forcing their definition back into the Bible. First, Israel is the name of Jacob. The term Israel originates from the biblical patriarch Jacob, who was given the name Israel by God in Genesis 32:28. This name signifies he who struggles with God, and Jacob's 12 sons became the patriarchs of the 12 tribes of Israel, forming the foundation of the united Israelite nation under David. So number two, the term Israel also refers to the United Kingdom established under David around 1000 BC. But after a period of tribal confederation in the reign of King Saul, he was evil, David united the tribes, establishing, quote unquote, Israel. This united monarchy continued under David's wicked son Solomon and represented the peak of Israelite political and military power. So number three, after Solomon, the kingdom split. And name Israel becomes the name of the northern kingdom post-Davidic Empire. So following Solomon's death, the United Kingdom split into two separate entities, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. The northern kingdom kept the name Israel, and that consisted of 10 tribes, and its capital was in Shiloh. It existed until it was conquered by the Assyrian Empire in 722 BC, and God's people were scattered. They spread their seed around the world, never to return, until they spiritually reunite as the true house of David under the new covenant described in Jeremiah 31:31. That says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, northern kingdom, scattered abroad, and the house of Judah," that Jesus offers. Number four, Ephraim. Now, Ephraim is the son of Joseph, who is the son of Jacob and Rachel, contrasting with Judah, who is the son of Jacob and Leah. Now, within the northern kingdom, the tribe of Ephraim held a prominent leadership role. Ephraim was one of the two sons of Joseph, and he received the right-hand blessing, and Ephraim inherited the Abrahamic covenant directly from Jacob in Genesis 48. I'm not sure why your paid preachers are still telling you that the Jews are the chosen people of God and that the Jews got the Abrahamic covenant, because it's simply not true. Not only were the Babylonian elites named Jews coming back in the 500s, they weren't given any sort of covenant from the Abrahamic blessing from God. Everyone before that, though they were Gentiles before the quote unquote Jews, the Jews didn't exist until after Babylon. So anyone before, they weren't Jews. They were all Gentiles. People don't understand this. I also don't know why they think, well, the covenant was given to Judah. No, the Abrahamic covenant, God's chosen people, that original covenant was handed down to Ephraim in Genesis 48, not Judah. Now, this tribe's significant influence is highlighted in biblical texts, and Ephraim is often used as another name for the entire northern kingdom of Israel. So rather than ever return to the physical land, biblical Israel are followers of the new covenant in Jeremiah 31:31, and they have a really unique role. Now, to be honest, they like to fuck with the pagan hoochie a little bit and worship some janky gods. So their role was to spread among all nations as a mixed multitude of people. And then God's elect serve to find the lost sheep of Israel and teach them about the covenant and its blessings. The church isn't the sheep, nor do they have a super secret covenant that they get to replace with the new covenant outlined in Jeremiah 30:31 and just make up their own story. The followers of the new covenant are the sheep called Israel. Now, who are the sheep? Well, the sheep are those who hear Jesus's voice and return to follow him, not the church, not Zionism, not Jews, not Greeks, not Romans, not Paul, not Muhammad, not Judah, not Baal, not Nimrod, not Ishtar, not Tammuz, not the Queen of Heaven, not Constantine, or any of the brilliant church fathers, not a paid preacher, not the traditions of man, not the Rothschilds or the World Economic Forum, not the UN, not the New Age star seeds, not the Pope, and not the political parties. They're to follow Jesus and choose to join in the offered covenant and obey the laws of that covenant. That's who the sheep are. Clearly, the sheep aren't the church. Chapter 7, Part B, it's really important to understand Greek grammar and translation and how this affects theology, doctrines, and dogmas coming out of the churches. This is for background knowledge. When we do Bible study in the future, it's just things that are basic and important to have. Now, Greek grammar, with its intricacies and nuances, it offers a rich and really precise means of communication. However, these complexities can be manipulated, misunderstood, leading to significant errors in translation. So this little section is going to explore some key aspects of Greek grammar that Bible readers should be aware of so they can better understand really problematic translation issues that were intentionally inserted to force the reader into a specific manufactured ideology or promoted theology, which just doesn't exist in the original documents. Greek is a highly inflected language, and that means the form of words changes to express different grammatical functions. This feature allows for flexibility in word order, but it also means that very small changes have significant and profound implications. For example, definite articles can alter the meaning of a sentence significantly. Moving or omitting an article can totally shift the focus, introduce ambiguity, and illustrate the corruption of once unambiguous Greek grammar to suit an agenda. First example, pistuo. Now, this is spelled Pistuo. And this Greek word means to believe, but its connotation varies. based on context and grammatical structure. In the New Testament, it can imply a deeper sense of obedience and loyalty, as seen in James 2:19. You believe that God is one, you do well. But even the demons believe and shudder. So here, this word pistuo for belief suggests not just an intellectual assent, but an active, faithful commitment. In contrast, Paul's use of the same word, pistuo, often implies a passive belief, which aligns with the church's subsequent teachings on faith alone. Now, this distinction highlights the differing emphasis between Paul's epistles and the Gospels, as well as James' epistle, on the nature of true belief and obedience. You have to remember the 12 apostles, James, Peter, John, Matthew, Mark, all these guys were coming with the mindset of the crossing over. Hebrew means to cross over. This is so ingrained in their first century mindset and culture that belief without action, without crossing over and doing something, is useless. I can just imagine Abraham standing on the side of the river, the first Hebrew to cross over. Well, as James points out, he talks about Abraham and his faith and how his faith and actions work together. Because if Abraham didn't have actions along with his faith, he'd be just standing on the other side of the river believing in shit, and he wouldn't get anywhere. So to the Hebrew mind, belief and action go together. But Paul's manipulating this scripture from a Greek pagan mindset, where you just have to sit back and believe a list of ideas and believe in your heart. And he's got this list of beliefs. I don't know where Jesus ever gave us a list of beliefs. He didn't. Jesus told you what to do. Paul came along and decided, don't worry about that. Here's a list of beliefs. And we now have thousands, tens of thousands of Christian denominations that sprang up from this misunderstanding. The Greek term for belief, used by the 12 apostles, absolutely carries a connotation of obedience and loyalty to a person or king, as in Jesus. Now, this is a rich and active belief, implying a commitment to follow and adhere to the teachings and commands of Jesus. For example, John 3:36, this term is used. Whoever, quote unquote, believes in the Son has eternal life. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God remains upon him. Notice the word obey and belief in the same statement, because his use of the word pistuo is linking with the idea of a belief in a person, a belief in a leader. If you believe in them, you follow them. If you follow them, you're doing something, not just thinking something. But in contrast, Saul of Tarsus, or the quote-unquote apostle Paul, self-appointed apostle, uses the same term in a totally different context. And he suggested internal, intellect-centered, or sentimental belief in a narrative. This use is seen in passages like Romans 10:9. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe, pistuo, in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. Notice he's speaking about belief in the connotation of a story, a narrative, not a person to obey. This grammatical structure and use of this word by the apostles emphasize an active living faith characterized by obedience and action, while Saul, his usage focuses on this internal personal belief. This distinction is critical and totally lost in English translations. Spinning denominations, 58,000 Christian denominations across the world, spitting them off into endless arguments. But it underlines the importance of living out your faith through actions and adherence to divine principles. This tension is exemplified in the disagreements between James the Zadik, or James the Just, and Saul of Tarsus. James is a central figure in the church, emphasized the importance of faith expressed through actions. In James 2:17, he says, "So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." He further asserts, "You believe that God is one, but even the demons believe and shudder." This clashed with Saul's emphasis on faith alone, creating a significant rift and huge battle between their understandings of belief. Now, Jesus' teachings provide a framework for living in accordance with the universal laws. He emphasized love, forgiveness, humility, and this all resonates with the law of vibration and elevating your own spiritual frequency. Adhering to the law of cause and effect, his commandments encourage actions that yield positive outcomes, fostering a cycle of goodness and blessing. The law of attraction is mirrored and is called to love one another, which attracts divine favor and harmonious relationships. Through following Jesus and his teaching and actually obeying the laws of the new covenant, I was able to fortify my defenses against dark entities and manipulative tactics. My lifelong journey and subsequent research into biblical truths has clearly illustrated that obedience to Jesus was not just a path to personal salvation, but a strategic alignment with the fundamental principles governing the universe. This holistic approach integrated my faith with an understanding of natural law, empowering me to navigate the spiritual landscape with resilience and wisdom. The truth is absolute. Living in obedience to Jesus' teachings, following his commandments, and adhering to the royal law, loving God and loving your neighbor, aligns your life with natural law. By doing so, you raise the vibration, strengthen your spiritual and moral foundation, making it much harder for darkness to influence or attack you. This alignment with divine principles provides a protective shield that enhances spiritual resilience. My unwavering adherence to the teachings of Jesus not only provided personal spiritual growth, but also acts as a bulwark against malevolent forces. This obedience and alignment with natural law, royal law, 10 Commandments, fosters a state of harmony and balance against spiritual attack. The next Greek term to look at is logos versus logos. The term logos is such a critical piece. The favorite verse that Christians love to trot out is John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All of those words is logos. Now, logos is capitalized, indicating this role as a divine entity or the pre-existent Christ, or what they call God the Son. However, the lowercase logos is all over the Bible, and it simply means an expression of a spoken word. Now, misunderstanding or intentionally altering this distinction between lowercase l in the whole rest of the Bible and capital L just in John Well, that leads to significant theological implications. The decision to capitalize the L in logos in John was made by translators and theologians because the original Greek manuscripts don't have capital letters. This capitalization of the word logos only in John reflects a theological choice rather than a grammatical necessity. And it forces the reader to the translator's theological decision of Christ as the divine word. But this happens to be the same logos as the ancient Greek pagan teachings of Philo, Cerinthus, Plato, and Paul. Moving an article. Let's consider the verse in Revelation 5:5. A traditional rendering reads, "Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has triumphed." But a closer examination of the Greek, where the word lion, it's actually bookended by the same definite article, meaning there's a definite article, then there's the word lion, then there's that same definite article. So it's like bookends between that word. Well, that suggests an alternative reading. And it would sound like this. Behold, exclamation point, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The root of David has overcome it, meaning the root of David has overcome the lion. The lion and the root aren't the same. This subtle shift is a contrast between two subjects. So one subject is the Lion of Judah, and the other subject is the root of David that's overcome. But the way translators knocked out those Greek articles makes it seem like a list. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, comma, who's also the root of David. That's not the Greek. It's contrasting two subjects, especially in the absence of an object for the verb overcome. So the lion and the root, they're not a list of attributes of the same subject. The root has overcome the lion. The interpretation or misinterpretation of this verse has a really profound impact, particularly in light of other verses in Revelation that make it clear the whole world will be deceived. How many Christians are out there right now waiting for their Messiah called the Lion of the tribe of Judah, based on a mistranslation that the root of David overcame that lion? Again, we're reminded Jesus warned about false shepherds leading the flock astray. In John 10, 12, 13, he says, the hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. The wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. And the man runs away because he's a hired hand, a paid preacher. He doesn't care anything for the sheep. Now, I don't think Jesus can say scattered any more than, 48, 58,000 Christian denominations. Can you get any more scattered than that? But the odd thing is, they're all waiting for the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And I wouldn't put my money on that. This passage highlights the danger of relying on those who don't have the flock's best interest at heart, choosing instead to teach whatever curriculum they're paid to teach. It underscores the importance of vigilance and discernment in spiritual matters. Understanding these nuances in Greek grammar can empower readers to recognize potential translation issues and appreciate the complexity of biblical text. By being aware of how just small changes, like the capitalization in logos, that's unambiguous Greek. There is absolutely zero grammatical context for that to be capitalized. But they made that choice in the 4th and 5th century to push a political agenda. And here we are. They significantly impact meaning. If readers understand this, they can approach translations with a more critical and informed perspective and safeguard against misconceptions, preserving the integrity of the original message, whether you like it or not. As we shift our focus from the linguistic intricacies of biblical Greek, it's essential to dive into the rich tapestry of Old Testament covenants, Davidic redactors, the Ephrathite bloodlines, and the narratives surrounding figures like Jacob and Esau. These foundational elements not only shape the theological underpinnings of the biblical text, but it offers profound insights into the historical and cultural context of ancient Israel. Exploring these covenants and genealogies will further illuminate the intricate web of relationships, deceit, and the promises of God.